Hi, and welcome to Shaky Sports Journeys. Thank you very much for joining us as always. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Only an audio-only podcast today. This is something very, very different to what I've mostly been doing on the channel, but a very interesting subject, something that I'm very passionate about as well. But I welcome to the channel today. Some of you may have seen them on social media. Twitter in particular, and known as Rangers Fans for Change. So I will say hello to the gentleman on the other side of the line. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me on today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So what made you start this group and how many people roughly are involved in it?
Well, currently there's between 40 and 50 people who are actively involved in our group chat and who kind of drifted together through social media, like-minded people who weren't happy with some of the things that we were seeing from, fans, the recent incident in Glasgow with the sectarian singing. Our main motivation for starting it is that we believe that the best way to address the issues that exist within our support and within the club is to try and enact change from within the support itself. Because a lot of times when incidents like this happen, there's, a lot of bad faith slinging of insults back and forth, and a lot of the criticism can often come across as being in bad faith to Rangers fans and coming from people that they believe have an agenda. And so a grassroots movement from within the support itself, we believe, is the best way to tackle bigotry and discrimination within the support.
Now, you make an interesting point there. You do see it on social media. Obviously, Rangers fans kind of don't see eye to eye. You can tell there's a bit of friction there between them and the SFA, and sometimes some of the political groups. And you're right, that could feel like you're constantly having to defend yourself, which it does come across like that a lot of the time. That feel that need to defend themselves. There's an agenda against them, as you say, and you being a part of the fan base, the people that are involved in your group are part of the fan base. You obviously care about the club. You're Rangers fans. So how do you think you're going to, how are you really going to tackle this? Do you think that's something that just through Twitter and the following growing and raising awareness, do you think that's sufficient enough to make a change with something that's been probably had the bigotry involved in it for quite a long historical time, especially when it comes to Protestants and Catholics?
Absolutely. Well, I think pretty much every Rangers fan at this point will be aware of the Everyone Anyone campaign that the club has now had for almost 2 years, I think. And it's been a breath of fresh air. It's been really great to see the club be proactive in trying to address bigotry and discrimination within the club, and to really emphasize the point that Rangers is a club that strives to be open to everyone. But as much as it's been a great initiative and it's had many benefits, we feel that it's not specific enough in certain respects, and that it would be helpful if this initiative included specific information about each individual type of discrimination and bigotry and the history behind it and how to tackle it. It's a really good effort from the club, but it can come across as a bit vague sometimes. And so, the main focus behind our group is encouraging more education among the support to try and, generate understanding about why these issues exist and why they need to be stamped out. And, we do this with the belief that the vast majority of Rangers fans are not, irredeemably bigoted. Even the people that are going out and singing the songs, we believe that the best approach is to educate them rather than, punitive measures, because this can ultimately just end up reinforcing those beliefs. And like you said, people, when they're criticized by people that they think have an agenda, they kind of recede into it more. And so we think that the best approach is for a movement like this, like I said before, to come from within the fan base itself.
People are questioning, I've seen, excuse me, that are you really Rangers fans? Why do you wish to remain anonymous? What would your response be to that?
I mean, we don't want to feel like we have to prove anything to anyone. But what I would say is that the people who have these preconceived ideas about what you have to be and what you have to believe to be a Rangers fan, these people, even if every single one of us went public, said exactly who we are, they would find other reasons to say that we're not Rangers fans. Mm-hmm. Right now it's, oh, you're anonymous, and so it must secretly be Celtic fans trying to make the club look bad or whatever. But if we came out and we all put faces to ourselves, people would say, oh, well, you're not really Rangers fans because this person has this specific belief, or this person identifies as this. I'm not confident that getting completely rid of any anonymity would convince these people who are criticizing us for being anonymous that we are really Rangers fans anyway. So
I can kind of relate to you there on some of the things you've said there, that the way if you came out and just showed your face, or standing in a Rangers top at Ibrox, for instance, that would be the main way to show that you're a Rangers fan, I guess. But somebody would still find something in your background. And obviously, I come from a Muslim background, and I often, it's quite frustrating actually, and annoys me sometimes. I've been a Rangers fan since I was probably 6, 7 years old. That's when I first started watching Rangers. Glory days I grew up in, the 9 in a row, almost getting the 10 in a row. Some great times. And I loved it, but I was very young at that age, so I didn't really know or was educated on how extreme the whole Protestant Catholic thing was. I was because I wasn't in that background, I was in a Muslim home, it never affected me that much. I was just watching the football. But as I started getting older, and I was I've been to different places, watched matches, or just bumped into people in the street after an Old Firm game, and I remember vividly bumping into a bunch of Celtic fans. It's not the first time this has been said to me. It's not. I don't think it'll be the last. And they'd actually won the Old Firm that day, and they were obviously in rowdy mood. And I was in a newsagent, and they were all happy. And I said, "Oh, good win for Celtic." He said, "Oh, good win for you as well." And I said, "No, mate, not good win for me. I support the other team. I'm a Rangers fan." And he looked at me like disgraced, like looked at me like, "You're a Rangers fan? Like how can this brown-skinned boy be a Rangers fan?" And I was quite offended by it, because I'm thinking, well, no, I've been a Rangers fan all my life. I shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable about it. But that kind of relates a little bit to what you just said, when you said if we even came out and said, well, this is who we are, this is our faces, there might be something in your backgrounds that people would question whether you're a Rangers fan or not. And I guess that's what you're ultimately trying to tackle with all of this, because if it's going to be anyone, and the club's going to be open and diverse, then it shouldn't really matter what your background is, should it?
No, absolutely. And I can, not your specific experience, but I can relate to the gist of what you're saying, because I I'm obviously not publicly saying who I am in this particular interview, but I'm happy to say that I've talked in the past, and with my friends and with people generally. I'm a gay football fan, and I've had Celtic fans say to me, "Oh, must be fun for you to be gay going to Ibrox with all those bigots," and like it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, same kind of discrimination.
People, and that's coming from Celtic fans, basically. That's not Rangers fans. It's good of me from being a Rangers fan. That's Celtic fans trying to say that I shouldn't be a Rangers fan because, I belong to a certain community. But, if we did come out and put our faces out there, then there are some Rangers fans who would absolutely pick on several different characteristics and say, well, you're not a Rangers fan because of this, that, and the next thing. And, coming out publicly has its benefits, but what I would say is that anonymity has the benefit of not making this about individuals. This is not about one individual person. This is about a group of us who have come together through a common cause to try and, enact change within the club that we love. And that's what it's about. And, one person coming out and saying, I am Rangers fans for change would ultimately serve to just make it about that person, at least for, a period of time. And if some of us do want to come out publicly, it has to be at the right time. And we want to make sure that the focus remains on the movement rather than, individual people.
Can I just ask though, see all the individual people in the group, is it quite a diverse bunch? I mean, have you got different religious beliefs, different sexual orientations, different, is it quite a widespread?
Well, yeah, we do have quite a diverse group. Amongst us, we have people of color, people from different ethnic and religious backgrounds. I am, from the LGBT community, and I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
In the group, we've got, quite a mixed gender balance. So yeah, it is like a broad church of people in the group, and people who criticize the club have this stereotypical view of a Rangers fan as a heterosexual white man who is bigoted and has all these certain beliefs, and we are indicative of the fact that that's simply not the case. And it's part of the reason that we're so eager to see positive change within the support and within the club, because we are, a lot of us are the kind of people that the Everyone Anyone campaign is targeted at, and we come from a lot of different communities and a lot of different backgrounds.
So the group in particular, I take it you have experienced some sort of, have you experienced bigotry? What's your kind of, how involved are you with the club? Do you go to do most of the people go to Ibrox, go and watch games? And have they had any bad experiences in the terraces at Ibrox? And is that what's kind of prompted this as well as other things like the chanting of the sectarianism in the street just a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, so most of us go to games at least sometimes. Most of us live in Scotland, and there are season ticket holders amongst us. So we are like fans who are actively involved with the club. Personally, I've heard like homophobic slurs chucked about between individual people in the ground. I can't say that I've like seen any like systemic issues with regards to that, and I've never personally been targeted by anything. But there are a couple of people in the group who have had experiences of hearing racist chanting, and we have people who are from an Irish background as well. And, you know, hearing the sectarian chanting is obviously not a pleasant experience for them or for any of us, really, because we're going to see all forms of bigotry stamped out from inside the ground. There's nothing we can do about, you know, individuals saying things privately between them, but certainly we want to encourage the club to be proactive in making sure it doesn't happen within the stadium.
So speaking as a Rangers fan myself, I know I'm far from a season ticket holder, but I mean, I've been to Ibrox from a young age all the way. I actually used to get to go with my neighbour because him and his daughter were season ticket holders, and if she ever felt ill, I always got the ticket. So it was quite cool. I would get a surprise ticket every now and then. And my experience of childhood of going to Ibrox when I was a young teenager was all good memories. And I would say an occasional shout from the stands of an opposition player throws a tackle in, he happens to be from a colour background, there might be a comment, but when you actually think about it, it would always tend to be from one person. It wasn't a feeling that I got across all the stand. I've never been directly ever racially insulted at Ibrox, so that's a good thing. The other thing is, I remember going to Ibrox to watch a game one night, and I went down at half time to get something to eat, and Ibrox sell halal pies. So I took a quick Snapchat because I'm always having to defend being a Rangers fan. Like all my fellow Scottish Muslim friends, for instance, the majority support Celtic, and they can't really understand why I've supported Rangers. So I took the video of it and I said, well, here you go. You can get halal pies at Ibrox. So they're doing. I don't see any major issue here. Move on. But where I think that the majority of it comes from is the bigotry between Protestants and Catholics, which is never, I think, look, it's a rivalry and it goes into the history, and I don't know it inside out, so I don't like to try and comment too much. But what's sad is that we're in 2021 and we are still seeing it on the streets. And what's sad is half of the Protestant Catholics that I know are friends. They work with each other. They see each other. You know, they're around. You know, even marriages have happened now that Protestants have married Catholics, and you know, times are moving on. But we seem to be kind of remaining. A certain set of fans seem to be holding on to that bigotry. How does that ultimately ever get tackled or ever go away? Because I'm skeptical about that.
Yeah, I mean, it is upsetting and can make you feel deflated when you see things like this happen again and again. I think what we derive encouragement from is that, for instance, when Glenn Kamara was racially abused earlier this year, the vast majority of fans got behind him and, you know, absolutely supported the club in the anti-racist messaging that they put out following the incident. And, you know, since fans were let back in, pretty much every time I've been in, when the players take the knee, it's an overwhelmingly positive response from the fan. Any boos are drowned out by people clapping and cheering for it. And so to us, that indicates that the vast majority of fans understand that bigotry and discrimination are wrong. And, you know, when the Glenn Kamara incident happened, it was plain as day to them that that was wrong. And people were vociferous in condemning it. But when it comes to, you know, the Protestant Catholic issue, to sectarianism, just because of the history behind it and the fact that a lot of the criticism from it comes from Celtic fans, some people, where they would absolutely condemn discrimination of another kind, have a sort of blind spot when it comes to this, where they think that they can't criticize it because if they criticize it, then that's, giving into criticism from, a rival club. And it's just about making people understand that, it's healthy to have rivalry between football clubs, but this sort of anti-Irish bigotry is not something that is acceptable or that can be part of the rivalry.
But it comes back to, I agree. I think we should all respect each other's beliefs and what we come from and what our, whatever it may be, whatever, with you being from the LGBT community, that's who you are. And the days of being targeted for being from that background should be gone now. People, the companies in particular, when you get a job now and you are taken through kind of your onboarding process, like discrimination, racism of any sort is made very clear. And most of the companies I've worked with anyway, in the handbooks, that if you're found to be partaking in any of this, you will no longer be working for the company. And that kind of, and you notice that you work with different people in the office from different backgrounds, and you may be skeptical when you first meet somebody because you don't really know them that well, or you've never met a person from that country or whatever. And over time, it's a great thing when you get to know different people, and you get to understand what their beliefs are and what their background is, and there's a respect there. I think what makes it difficult, I mean, I've got lots of friends from Protestant background, Catholic background, and obviously I know it exists. It's just kind of like, it's all right to, I'm not against Muslims and I'm not against them, I'm not against them, but I don't like Catholics, or same with the Catholics, don't like Protestants. And it's sad, because how do you change that? And most of the people I'm talking about, they've grown up in that, probably in their households, and that probably is then going to get passed on to the next generation, and then the next generation. So I agree with what you said right back at the start with the Everyone Anyone campaign. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more specific. But also at the same time, I want to put out here right now that we are both very much Rangers fans. I love watching Rangers, love the success that's come back to the club, and been through some tough times. But this is not just a Rangers problem. This is far from just a Rangers problem. I mean, when it comes to racism, look at what the England players just went through when they missed the penalties in the Euro final. They got absolutely abused on social media. And this brings me into my next question. Are you ever going to be able to get rid of stuff like this when social media allows people to make fake accounts and spread bigotry and racism and hatred?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said, you're absolutely right. And I just want to, before I answer your main question, I just want to highlight the fact that what you said about it not being just a Rangers problem, I think this is part of the problem within, the Scottish media and pundits particularly, is that quite often people speak as if it is just a problem with Rangers. And, there are systemic issues with bigotry and discrimination. Absolutely. And, that's the reason we exist, to try and do our bit to address it. But I think it doesn't help any Rangers fan who is engaging in this kind of behavior when they feel that the club and support is being exclusively targeted for this behavior, when, as you said, we saw it after the Euros, where it's like thousands upon thousands of disgusting racist messages and tweets were sent to the black players who missed the penalties. But in terms of, can we ever get rid of these things, it's a difficult question. It's, personally, we don't think that it would be helpful or proportionate for us to say that our goal is to stamp out bigotry and racism from society entirely. I mean, we all know that the world isn't perfect, and no bad thing can ever be completely eradicated, but you can try and resolve systematic and society-wide discrimination as best you can. we want there to be an environment where young Rangers fans and young people generally grow up knowing that it isn't acceptable to engage in bigoted and discriminatory behavior. And we don't believe that most of the people who sing these songs that are irredeemable, they aren't bad people at their core, and that education is ultimately the key. The world is moving on a lot when it comes to discrimination of all kinds. We feel the club has moved on with the Everyone Anyone campaign, and we want the support at large to move on with the club as well.
Social media side of things there. While social media, now somebody could potentially say that you guys are a fake, because obviously there's no name to it at the moment, but you're not spreading, you're not spreading bigotry, racism. Yes, people I think maybe you have an agenda and you're not Rangers fans, but I'm very comfortable to say that I know you're definitely Rangers fans. You're spreading a positive message. You haven't badmouthed Rangers at any point. You're more just are highlighting.
No,
we want a good positive change so that people can't target the club anymore.
Yeah, this is the thing, is what you said, like, why would a group of Celtic fans create a page and a movement that is trying to get the club and the support to be seen in a better light? It just doesn't make any sense.
You would have said something by now that was more controversial to try and hate on the club, I've seen pretty much most of the stuff that you've posted, and all I get from it is that she just wants to show that the club gets a lot of negative press, and I do think I agree with you. There's a lot of people out there in the media with agendas against Rangers, and they try to highlight that even more. But then it doesn't help when couple of hundred odd people walk down a street in the middle of Glasgow singing, hatred songs towards another type of, and then that allows everyone to jump on the bandwagon. And I do think it feels like it turned into a bit of a point scoring exercise rather than, we need to put an end to this and how can we stop this, and we need to stop it from both sides. There, I told you I was in a toilet the other day, a public toilet in a petrol pump, and I read F the Huns on the wall. So it's not just happening from one side.
No, you're absolutely right, and that is, I've said it before earlier in the podcast, but I'll say it again because it is very key that things aren't going to improve with this cycle of some Rangers fans caught singing a bigoted song, and then just an onslaught of cynical point scoring from your usual media pundits and the same folk every time, that the fans who have engaged in this behavior aren't going to listen to these people. These people aren't going to convince them that their behavior is wrong, these people aren't making any effort to educate these fans as to why the behavior is wrong. And so that is why this group exists, because it has to come from us.
No, I think it's it's been good to talk and get a clearer understanding. Not that you haven't been clear on your social media, but obviously getting to ask certain questions and understand exactly where you're coming from. But I do completely agree that I find that there's a lot of powers above that do seem to have a bit of a personal vendetta against Rangers. And yes, if it's not done in the right way, it's not going to get a positive response. So I think what you're trying to do ultimately, then what are you trying to do and how are you going to go about it?
So we have plans to get in touch with the Rangers charity. We have contacted various actors within the club. We've contacted the SLO, the managing director. We've gotten in touch with other Rangers affiliated groups like Ibrox Pride to have dialogue and to liaise on ways in which we can address these issues within the club. There are plans as well to organise food bank collections, possibly fundraise, to get tickets for low income fans who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford them, and things like this. Just grassroots community work in the local area, and engaging constructively with important people within the club to find ways to address these issues and to encourage education of within the club about bigotry and discrimination, and hopefully through these actions we can do our bit to help tackle it.
And how's the response been so far? How have you, I think, how long, has it been a couple of weeks since you've started it? How have you mentioned you've contacted quite a lot of groups, etc. there. What kind of response are you getting, and how have you found the response so far on social media?
So yeah, it's been 11 days now, I think, since we launched the page. And the initial response was massive. It just picked up so quickly. It was a bigger response than we could have hoped for. And, we had plenty of, skepticism and criticism, but we also have had a lot of really encouraging messages from, fans of Rangers, fans of other clubs. We've had people like Amar Anwar tweeting about us, which was, a huge honor. And the response has been mostly positive, and we're really encouraged by the platform that we've managed to build up already. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Well, look, it's really cool to hear that you're looking to engage with different groups, work with different people, because that's the only way you could start to go about change. I think you have to go beyond just social media, although social media is very, very powerful. And I think if that will grow there, the message will go far and wider. But I think the fact that you mentioned grassroots, local communities, and giving just show the club in the light that it is, which is a great football club with an amazing history, amazing fans who are loyal through thick and thin. I was actually just watching a clip today of Gary Neville. It's public knowledge, I'm sure, out there already, but he said it's the loudest, most amazing atmosphere he's ever played in. That's what Rangers and Ibrox is all about. Obviously, 55th title last year. Hopefully, we're looking good again so far this season. But look, I wish you all the very best in your journey with this. I hope people see it for what it is, which is, you're not out to attack your club. You've got love for your club, you want good for your club, but you're also a bit bored and tired of the same old bashing that the club does get in the media. But there are some sets of fans that don't always do themselves or the club any favors. So if we can stamp that out and educate a little bit better moving forward, then hopefully it can become a little bit more. Listen, Celtic Rangers is never going to be for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. But it would be nice to hear that our next generation of kids are not listening to certain songs being sang in the terraces or anything or outside the stadium that will influence them, because Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, Jewish people, all different religions. We live here in a city of Glasgow, and we live mostly in harmony. So it would be nice for it to be a little less of that and more about the football. And yeah, a couple more titles for Rangers rather than Celtic will do me just fine.
Absolutely. And what you said is absolutely right. Rangers is a massive institution supported by, millions of people globally and hundreds of thousands within, Scotland and the UK. And it has such an important place in the local community, has so much influence and importance within the local community. And we believe that the club can be a real vector for positive change, and it can do really great things, even outside of football. And that's what we want to encourage and be a part of, because we know what good the club is capable of. and we want to be a part of realizing it.
Well, I wish you all the very best. As you know, I've been a public supporter of what you're doing. I've got even more of an understanding now of what you're doing. So I look forward to seeing your group grow and, you know, see more and more positivity. Because in general, I've seen so many positive messages from Rangers fans in response to what you're doing. The skepticalness seems to only be coming from a few. It's been more overwhelming in a positive front. So long may that continue. Thank you very much for speaking to me today. And yeah, all the very best.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.